Welcome to the show, everyone. I'm JJ Flazanes, your host and producer. Thank you for downloading today's episode. Today's episode, The Three Faces of Victim, is part 2 of a 4-part series with Lynne Forrest that I'm repurposing and republishing here on this show now. These episodes were recorded in 2015 when I launched Fit to Love, and I just keep referring back to them all the time. New clients, new classes. I want to share this information because some people have no relationship to it. It's something that they've heard about, but they don't really understand, and they haven't used it on themselves or to take a look at their relationships and their family dynamics. So I just feel like it was super important. It was time. I was being called, so I hope you can appreciate that. And if you have heard them before, as I'm editing them, I mean, this is now probably the 4th or 5th time I've listened to them because I recorded it, then I edited the first time, and I'll tell you that they are worth repeating. They're worth repeating because I'm different than I was in 2015, and you are different than you were in 2015. And if you're a new listener to the show, then this is brand new information for you. But every year and every month and every day that we grow and we expand, we hear things differently. So repeating information isn't a waste of time. In fact, sometimes I listen to Abraham audios 20 times, and each time I might hear something new because I'm in a different place to receive the information. So today, again, is part 2 of 4-part series. I hope you enjoy it. 2 other quick announcements. The doors are open. I am doing the Empowerment Strategist Certification Program. I am starting with a beta program of only 6 people, and I have 5 spots left as of now. You can apply at jjflazanes.com/cert, C-E-R-T, like certification. And the people that start the beta program with me will go through all of the different modules in order to not only learn how to help others, but of course to do the deeper dive into ourselves first and foremost. So if it's something that you've always thought you wanted to do, you want to do this with other people, you want to be a coach, you want to help people, you want to be a part of my bigger brand, the Empowerment Strategist Certification, please apply. There is no cost. We jump on a call. We see if it's a right fit. If it's not a right fit now, it may be in the future. So jjflazanes.com/cert, C-E-R-T, but I'm only taking 6 people starting in April, and it will not reopen again until the end of the year. Also, the Inner Circle membership is going up in price. You can secure your spot for $9.99 now. And I'll tell you, I just want serious people. So this is not a plea. I don't need your $10. It's for people that want a community. You want to listen to the show, and you want to come talk with people about it who you know listen to the show. You want to find a Rampage of Appreciation partner, someone who you can call and practice law of attraction with because you know that they think like you in this realm. I want to give you a space to be free. A space to be who you are, a space to not have to hold back. And that's what I'm creating in the Inner Circle membership. So if you're interested, you can secure and grandfather in the current price of $9.99. It goes up to $14.99 on March 1st. Okay? So I hope you enjoy today's show, part 2 of 4. We have back Lynne Forrest. Lynne is a reality guide and personal growth mentor. Lynne was educated through a lifetime of studying and observing metaphysical life principles taught to her early in life and learning how to apply those principles to her own life in positive ways. She's been sharing her findings with others and watching their lives transform since the 70s and has supported herself and her family through a private practice which was founded on those principles in 1985. Lynne came up through the ranks of experiential learning rather than the more traditional academic route. She started out in the mental health field in the early 70s, hired and trained by an HMO in social work and mental health. She has been in the field of personal growth ever since, moving to the addictions field in the early 80s, where she was one of the pioneers for codependency and family of origin work in Chattanooga, Tennessee. As a perpetual student of life and consciousness, Lynne has devoted her career to studying with masters of various disciplines: family dynamics, Jungian principles, dreams and shadow work, psychodrama and energy, as well as the laws of manifestation. Body-oriented practices such as yoga, physical unwinding, and qigong are some of the approaches Lynne applies in her work with others. Welcome back to the show, Lynne.
To be back.
Well, let's get into this. If you haven't heard the first show we did with Lynne, we went over the victim triangle and we did a little overview of what that was. And so if we could recap that just to start off this show, in case someone listening is sort of doesn't know where this is coming from, this information, well, how would you, in a short, concise way, talk about the victim triangle?
The victim triangle was actually first called the drama triangle. It was originated by Dr. Stephen Karpman, a PhD, very involved and still alive today, and a friend of mine actually. Transactional analysis was his modality, and that was where I first ran across what he called the drama triangle back in the 70s and began to use it as a tool. And basically it's a diagram of an upside down triangle that has three roles on it that he noted in all dramas, whether it's play, acting, theater, or whether it's on the football field, the football team going through that. And then he began to notice that the same drama played out not only in scripted theater, plays, etc., but also in everywhere in life, all around us, not only in gameplay, but also in our dynamics. And since then, I've come to recognize that anywhere there's any sort of dysfunctional interaction going on, we will find that we are indeed on the what I call victim rather than drama triangle. And I use the word victim triangle because when victim is one of the roles on the triangle, and anytime we are on that triangle in any of the three roles that I'm about to name, we are in victim consciousness, which means that sooner or later we will come back to the victim position. We just move round and round that upside down triangle in our triangular dynamics with others. So we have the victim, which is the entry point. Anytime we are in victim consciousness, which starts the minute we believe that something outside of us is the cause of our unhappiness. And then we adapt a defense strategy. We either go into collapse, which is the victim, and we become more and more helpless in the hope that someone will come along and scoop us up and carry us. And that's a viable defense strategy. Or we move into the rescuer role, defense strategy that says, rather than collapse, I'm going to take this bull by the horns and I'm going to make it right. I'm going to fix the problem and I'm going to take care of everyone around me and I'm going to sacrifice myself in the setting it right. That's what I'm here to do. I'm here to live my life for them, and there's a whole lot of self-neglect that goes into that, because for a rescuer, they know how to meet everyone else's needs, but when you ask them their own needs, they kind of go blank. They have no idea. Needs? I don't need anything. That needs is what other people, I furnish needs. I don't have them sort of attitude. And then the third position or defense strategy then, rather than to fix it, control it, make it better, by taking control of it, of the rescuer, is the persecutor. And the persecutor is that part or that place on the triangle, the defense that has the defense strategy of attack, and based on a belief that says the world is dangerous and I have to get you before you get me. And so those are the three roles. We just move round and round them on the triangle anytime we're in victim consciousness. The big question is, how do we stop? How do we get off that triangle?
So in identifying yourself as a victim, rescuer, or persecutor, I know that you talked you've done some videos on YouTube that I saw about starting gate positions. And I know on the last show we talked about that wherever you start, it doesn't matter, you're going to move around to all the positions, but there is something called a starting gate position. Can you talk a little bit about that so people can then see sort of what their starting gate position might have been within their own family dynamics to start, and then how that affects where they go next?
Yes, I've refined that whole idea of the starting gate to hopefully make it a little more clear. And the starting gate position on the triangle, there are two different ways, two different possibilities on the triangle of the way we move around. First of all, there are the three roles: victim, rescuer, persecutor. And once we're on the triangle, we are on the triangle. We're going to move about. We're going to go through all the various roles at some time or another. Now, we may go back and forth. It's like if I've got an argument going on with someone, we may take turns where I go into persecutor role with them and I tell them how they're doing it all wrong, and I criticize and I blame. And that in that moment they're in victim and I'm in persecutor, and then they may turn on me and accuse me of this and that, this and that, this and that, and we'll go back and forth, volleying the ball, so to speak, back and forth between victim and persecutor, until finally something has to shift where, in order to get off the triangle, or actually to perpetuate movement, where something will happen to move one of us into rescuer, or an external rescuer will come in and say, hey, you guys need to break it up, or why don't you look at it this way, or blah, blah, blah. Or I'm sorry, I meant to, and it's all my fault, or something like that, where we move on around the triangle. So one way of movement around the triangle is through the roles. And when we're on the triangle, we all do that. And then the starting gate, however, is when we take on the role as our position in life. It becomes like our personality style. It becomes our main line of defense. It becomes who we identify with being. And each one of the roles has a particular way of seeing life that lends itself to a personality adaptation where we literally, so I can move through all of the roles as a rescuer. The way the rescuer moves around the triangle is going to look very different than the way a persecutor moves around the triangle, than the way a victim moves around the triangle. And all that is dependent on which of the roles they identify most with as a personality type, because they're going to see the world through that particular lens.
Let's talk about, are you automatically, I know we talked about it in the last show, whether this was something that just sort of happens. Is it about modeling? Is it inner instinct? And we talked about sort of being born into these roles within our family dynamics. But I want to differentiate for people when it's a problem and when it's, like you mentioned, getting on the triangle. Are there times where we're not on the triangle? I mean, I would assume that we would not want to be on the triangle because it doesn't sound like a very healthy place to be based on our fears that drive the different positions that we're in. It feels, and from what our last show we talked about, like a belief in lack and limitation, as well as distrust of universe and of our life and of the evolution of everything. And again, that interaction between us and source, or us and whatever we believe is bigger than we are. So talk about that for a second, about, are we ever off the triangle, and can we be healthy and be on the triangle?
Yes, we're off the triangle, and that depends. Well, actually, the answer, the more truthful answer would be, it depends on who you're speaking to. Some of us live on the triangle and we don't get off. That's our every interaction, every way of seeing is from the victim position that says the world is at me, against me, doing something to me, keeping me from something. If I'm seeing the world as the source of my problem, I'm on that triangle somewhere. And because blame is the distinguishing characteristic. That is the number one primary characteristic of victim consciousness. It is the one thing that all three roles on the triangle do. They all blame. So, and what that means basically, in order to blame, is we find a problem. We see a problem. So when you ask, is it a problem to be on the victim triangle? I would say no. It is not a problem to be on the victim triangle. It doesn't mean it's comfortable. It produces pain, but if you'll notice in life, it's the things that induce discomfort for us that are also they act like cattle prods for growth. Pain is just, there's nothing like it to motivate us to make changes that we would never in 1,000 years even consider otherwise. And so you see, pain is a great motivator. So yes, the triangle has its function and its purpose. It is not a futile thing. It's not a bad thing to be on it. it is increasingly painful if we are unconsciously on it, though. And so, because we're just living it out, we don't know why. And we just feel at the mercy of life, and we don't know how we got there. And all we know is that the world is a mean place and that people mistreat us, and we don't understand, as the guiding principles teaches us, the guiding principles being sort of the basic fundamentals that underlie reality. These are the constructs, the framework on which reality is built, and they're ancient laws that have been around and are present in every doctrine of truth down through the ages. And one of those precepts says there's nothing that happens in your day that is not on your energetic pathway. And that there is the law of cause and effect says that everything has a cause, is an effect from something. Nothing happens in a void. There's no such thing as happenstance. And so we know that there is no coincidence, that means that energetically what I have on my path, what I meet and encounter today, is going to be a reflection of my own mindset, my own belief system. Whatever beliefs I'm thinking and believing is going to be how I'm feeling. It's like if I meet you and I have a belief about, I've seen your picture, you look like a blonde. Let's just say I have a thing against blondes. Maybe my mother was a blonde, and I was very angry with her. And so whenever I see a woman with a particular style of blonde hair, I have an old story. Immediately I project onto them unconsciously, that person, I will unconsciously project onto them my story about blondes, my story about my mother as a blonde. And so now I've decided you can't be trusted. And for no other reason other than you're blonde, you remind me of my mom now. Now I've decided I can't trust you. So I'm thinking thoughts, well, okay, what does she really want? What is she really trying to say? And what she's trying to manipulate me here? What's going on? These are the kind of thoughts going on in my mind because I believe what I believe about blondes. It has nothing to do with you. It's just that now I have my story about you, and I'm believing it because I'm thinking it. And I think because I think it, it must be true. So I'm at the mercy, really, of my own belief system. And then what I do is I begin to have the feelings that go with that thought. So I'm paranoid around you. I'm distrustful of you. I'm a little bit resentful. I don't like you immediately, so I'm pulling away from you. And maybe I'll even say some sort of, so then it that rolls over into my behavior. Now I begin to interact with you as if what I believe is true. So now I'm treating you with kid gloves. I'm holding you at a distance. I'm suspicious of you. I want to know why you want to know things and how, and maybe I'm short with you. Maybe I don't make eye contact because I don't trust you. And so these are the way I interact with you. Well, you're watching all this. You're feeling this energetic exchange going on. You don't know what's going on in my head, but you feel it energetically. And so what do? Of course, you're going to create your own story about what's going on with me. And you're going to, maybe there's a good chance you're going to feel not very strong draw towards me because you're going to feel my wall against you and between you and I. And you may find yourself withdrawing and looking down and creating a story to protect yourself from me. Who does she think she is anyway? She thinks she's better than I am. Why does she look at me like that? Why is she avoiding me? She doesn't like me. Well, I don't like her either. So this begins to go on in your mind. Now you start feeling and acting out of your story, and I'm watching that. And that, what I'm watching in you do in reaction to what I'm doing, feeling, thinking, believing, gives me the evidence I've been looking for unconsciously that proves I'm right about you. See, you're just another angry, untrustworthy blonde just like my mother. And without even recognizing that the part I played in setting and bringing that about.
So with that, are there, because I think I know the answer to this question, I'm just curious on your position on it, is there then a difference between a real victim or someone who plays the part of a victim on the triangle?
Yes. The book that comes to my mind is Viktor Frankl's In Search of Meaning. He was a psychiatrist who went through concentration camps, lost all of his family. He's the only one who lived through it. He was a psychiatrist. And the way he handled it, he wrote this book, and he formulated a whole way of therapy with clients after he lived through the Holocaust thing. And it was all about how he got through it. And really, when I read his book, I thought, well, there's the reality formula. That's the same. It's the same process. It's not what has happened to us, or it's not that we don't get victimized in life by tragedies or things that, but it is that we always have the choice about whether to see ourselves as a victim of, to see this as an initiation in life, as an opportunity to refine my own consciousness, as that which some soul part of me came to experience for the refinement opportunity it gives me to enhance my own consciousness and align more fully with the reality of life and source, and which is what our circumstances always gives us, that if we choose to accept the gift. There's nothing in life that happens that doesn't have a gift in it for us, albeit a pain. The process itself may be very painful.
Oh, yes, absolutely. When I mentioned in the last show about my own family drama, at the time, I asked myself, so how did I manifest this? What part did I play in this? And once I sort of identified some things and lessons that could come out of it, it served a purpose. And it definitely transformed the situation for me, and in terms of my own feelings about it. And so I think that it's a great practice. I think it's the healthiest practice to take any situation. I mean, that's how my second book, which is now my first book, was written. My first publisher said, hey, here's some good news and bad news. We're going to keep your book, but we're going to push it out from December of 2010 to August of 2011. And I was really sad, and I took about 12 hours to cry and grieve. And then I thought, well, there has to be a reason. There has to be a reason. What's the silver lining? And I realized it wasn't something that project wasn't something I was passionate about. It wasn't going to serve me as the reflection of who I am in the world in the way that I wanted it to as my first work out there in a book. And so that allowed me to then write Fit to Love and gave me the space to do that. And then it had a great purpose. And so rather than being a victim of the current financial economic climate, it really allowed me to propel forward into a whole brand that had been emerging that I wouldn't have known otherwise if that hadn't happened. So now, if people are listening and they're feeling like they have a very strong pull towards one of these, and so they know they're on the triangle, whether they're in the triangle in their own head or in their family or with friends or just life in general, I want you to talk about what they can do. Okay, Lynne, so when I find myself on the triangle, what do I do next?
Well, congratulate yourself for finding yourself there. That's the very first thing, because very often what we want to do is judge ourselves for being there. And one of the tell people is that denial follows fast and hard on the heels of judgment. So when we judge ourselves negatively for something we recognize, it's like living in a dark environment and stumbling over things and over again banging up my knees or feet or whatever from the environment that I cannot see in. And finally one day I find the light, flip it on, and turn around to look, and the place is just an absolute mess. And I think to myself, my first thought, instead of hallelujah, the light's on, my first thought is what a mess to clean up. And I can't believe I've been living like this. And this is terrible. And then before I know it, I very quietly, my hand is sort of snuck over and flipped off the light again, because it's easier to live in denial than it is to live with self-recrimination. And so when I blame myself and judge myself harshly for that which I'm uncovering, is it any wonder then that I slip back into the old denial patterns? And so the very first thing I want to do is just recognize that the accomplishment in being able to wake up in the middle of finding myself on that triangle and recognize it as the first big step to consciousness. And then to begin to ask myself the questions. This is where I blend Byron Katie's work. I love her 4 questions and turnarounds, because it's a very concise way of accessing the observer consciousness, which is what we want to do. It's not, we don't want to rush into fixing ourselves, or that's a rescue. That just perpetuates it even more. We just said we don't want to blame ourselves. That's persecuting ourselves. That leads to more denial. And we don't want to slide back into, well, woe is me, I can't help it, this is just the way I am. That's helpless baby. So what do? We want to access the observer. We want to access that part of us, the don't know mind, that part of us that's able to stand back and witness without a judgment, and is able to just sort of look at it and say, okay, why would I? The same kinds of questions you asked in your beautiful illustration a minute ago that of your own life, of being able to stand back and say, okay, rather than get stuck in the spiral here, is there another way I could see this in alignment with the guiding principles? And the guiding principles are the antidote to victim consciousness. They're where we want to go, because when we see life through the guiding principles of reality, again, the guiding principle being those constructs of reality that all reality is based on. Reality is the way it is right here, right now. And in order to make peace, we can only enter peace from this moment. That's where reality is. Nowhere else. It's not in the past, not in the future. It's right here, right now. It's what is right here, right now. And beginning to recognize the difference between reality, the what isness of this moment, and my story about what is. Beginning to differentiate by asking myself, okay, what is the bare bone facts? And that's really very minimal, really. When you get down to what the reality is, it'll be something like woman speaking in mic to another woman, presumably. I don't even know that for a fact. Sort of thing. But not meaning that you're not a woman, but how do I even know that you really exist other than in my mind, So I'm having this, that's the reality. But if I tell myself, yeah, I'm having this conversation with this other woman who doesn't like me, or who thinks I'm fabulous, or who is following me, or has some story. I don't know that any of that's true, but I will feel and act as if it's true, and thereby act in ways that will gather me the evidence. All evidence does, it doesn't prove anything. All it does, except it does prove one thing. It proves how committed we are to the story. That we've been so committed to our belief about what reality is, not reality, but our story about what reality is, that we have gathered all kinds of evidence by living it out. And so now I've got a list of evidence as long as my leg, but that doesn't mean anything other than I've been busy proving it to myself a long time.
Absolutely. Law of attraction says you manifest whatever you believe, period. And law of attraction will just keep showing it to you over and over and over again. And the only way to change it is to change what you believe, or soften that, or look in a different direction. But definitely the belief system. And people say, oh, no, this doesn't exist. Or, oh, yes, that exists. Well, if that's what you believe, that's what you're going to get at the end of the day. So now if somebody knows that they are on this triangle and they're feeling a little bit stuck and they want some more information from you, they want to work with you, how can they get more information from you?
I would encourage them to go to my webpage, which is simply lynneforrest.com. That's E on the end of Lynne, L-Y-N-N-E, and 2 R's in Forrest, Forrest.com. When you pull up my link, the very first thing that you'll encounter there is Faces of Victim, which is the original article that has been refined since I put it out on the online 15 years ago. So read that first. I'd recommend that, and then learn about the release of the phone app that we've just put out through NeuroQ, My Program Reality Formula, stepping stones to building new neural pathways. It's actually using neuroscience as a way to build neural pathways using the reality formula to replace old thinking about the world. So it gives us a chance to really, they say it takes 60 days to build those new neural loops and to replace the old. And this program is designed to help you put those new neural loops in place. And so that would be a recommendation. That you'll find it talked about on my blog. So if you go to my webpage, find the blog, sign up for the weekly messages there. These are all things that are available. And, of course, my book, which is Guide Beyond Victim Consciousness, and it's available either Amazon.com or Barnes & Nobles. So that's available also. You can learn how to contact me through my webpage. If you're interested in one-on-one sessions, those are available on a limited basis. Call and set something up. I'd love to chat with and work with anyone who is ready to really transform their consciousness and move to peace, because it is possible, and it can happen as quickly as you can change your mind. And that's really it. It's just a matter of changing my mind about how I see the world.
Thank you so much, Lynne, for being here. This was excellent. And hopefully if you're listening and you listen to the first show and this is the second show, you'll come back for the third show, which is healing your patterns from childhood and family. Lynne, thank you so much again for being here.
Thank you, JJ.